And now, here's your host, Kevin Conover.
Bring your tide and bring your shame.
Welcome to Educate for Life. I'm your host, Kevin Conover. My website is educateforlife.org. A few weeks ago, I had on the radio Dr. Jake Hebert. We were covering, he's a physics, he has his doctorate in physics, and we were talking about climate change. I thought it was important to keep talking about this because whether you know it or not, your view on climate change affects policy. So the laws that are passed in our government here in America and really around the world are impacted by what your view is on climate change. If climate change is man-made, then we need to restrict what's happening, right, to make sure that our world doesn't go into some sort of a natural catastrophe. On the other hand, if it's not man-made and there's nothing we can do about it, then we don't have to make all these restrictions with greenhouse gases and so forth. My guest today is Mike Oard. He's a climatologist, and he has a BS in atmospheric science from the University of Washington. He has an MS in atmospheric science, also from the University of Washington. And he was a meteorologist from 1973 to 2001 for the National Weather Service. He was the lead forecaster in Great Falls, Montana from 1981 to 2001. So, Mike, thanks so much for being on the show today.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I want to read real quick before we hop into this. This is from the Heritage Foundation, and it says here, this was an article published a few years back regarding climate change. It says, the cost of a climate policy, the economic impact of Obama's climate action plan. And this was back when Obama was aggressively pursuing very restrictive greenhouse gas emission policies and so forth. And it says here, this war on coal would prove the most costly, with hundreds of thousands of lost jobs and 1.47 trillion lost of national U.S. income by 2030. And this is, people today are talking about this, that, President Trump seems to be a pro-coal person versus, or president versus what Obama was pursuing. And so, Mike, what we want to get down to the bottom of here is what's the whole deal with climate change? Why do you have all these people aggressively pursuing things like the Paris Agreement, which Trump backed out of, and people saying that if you don't believe in climate change, you don't deserve to do science, these sorts of things. We're hoping that you can shed some light on these issues. What got you interested in meteorology and so forth when you were young? Were you, as a kid in elementary school, were you like, I want to grow up and be able to determine the weather?
Oh, yes. Right from middle school, I was interested in nature, and I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and, it rains a lot, and I was wondering why that happened, so I made my own wind vane and anemometer and had a rain gauge out there and took temperature readings, did my own observations for a short while, actually, but that sparked my interest in atmospheric science or meteorology. There's differences, but they're about the same.
Okay. What's the difference between atmospheric science and meteorology?
Well, meteorology focuses on forecasting, while atmospheric science goes into the physics of weather. And at the University of Washington, it was taught as atmospheric science, which is actually a branch of physics called fluid dynamics. So everything from about the minute you step in the door as an undergraduate, courses in atmospheric science are taught with partial differential equations.
Okay. So that for anybody who doesn't like math, then they're going to have to back out of that, huh?
Oh, yes. It's a surprise to a lot of people. So you generally learn the theory behind the motions of the wind, which is, by definition, a fluid.
Yeah, that's got to be really difficult. Didn't Jesus say we don't know where the wind comes from or where it's going?
Yes, he did. You say something like that.
Maybe at the time, huh? So
yes, at the time, we know more about it since then, of course.
Yeah. Now you work for. Are you currently on staff with Answers in Genesis? Is that right?
No.
Oh,
I was. I was actually adjunct speaker for them for a few years.
Okay.
And I'm an independent researcher, enjoying the outback of the United States in Bozeman, Montana. And so I just do creation research now, and I speak now and then, and but I've done research or speaking for all the major creationist groups in the past.
That's fantastic. Okay, now, so when you got out of high school, and did you grow up in a Christian family? Did you already have a Christian worldview as you were moving into getting your degrees and so forth?
I'm not sure. I grew up a Catholic, but I was not a very good Catholic.
Okay.
I had 12 years of Catholic education, so I guess you might say it was a quasi-Christian worldview.
Okay. And so what happened when you got to college and so forth, and you started being, being confronted with the different opposing worldviews when it comes to looking at things like, were we created or did we evolve, a naturalistic explanation for nature and creation and reality versus God divinely creating everything. What happened? When did you come to make the decision that, hey, I believe in the Bible?
Well, actually, I wasn't confronted much by evolution in college whatsoever, because I was in a branch of physics that had absolutely nothing, almost nothing to do with evolution. So by the time I got out of graduate school, I was able to I believe, objectively take a look at it, because it was controversial. I heard about it, read maybe a little bit about it, and see if there was something to this evolution. I was thoroughly prepared to be a theistic evolutionist if the evidence for evolution was significant. To my surprise, it was insignificant, hardly any evidence for it, and it really shocked me, and it actually perked my interest in the whole area, and I was about, and so here I am.
Wow, that's amazing, huh? So you were expecting that there was going to be a lot of support for evolution, but you ended up going, whoa, wait a second, there's not the support that I thought there would be.
That's correct.
Now, as you're studying meteorology, you're living your life, you're moving along here. How did this progress? Were there any kind of spots where you're doing your job, just living your life, and you began to look at meteorology and atmospheric science in light of Scripture and the flood and these sorts of things? When did that start to pop up in your life?
Well, I became interested especially interested in the issue when I read Henry Morris's, John Wickham and Henry Morris's book, The Genesis Flood. A fellow forecaster, actually in the Los Angeles forecast office, gave me a copy of it to look at way back in the early 70s, and that really perked my interest, and I started reading more books, and there weren't very many books out at that time. And then by the time I got transferred to Bakersfield, I and about three other guys were going around to various churches teaching about the issue of creation and evolution.
So not only did they pique your interest, but they convinced you that this was the right view. Yes,
and eventually I thought of how I can contribute to research, and the Ice Age popped into my mind, and so I did a lot of research on the Ice Age, and that from there, since the Ice Age is actually interdisciplinary, and so that got me interested in geology and geophysics. So I've gone from climatology, meteorology to the Ice Age to flood geology.
Oh, it's very interesting. Well, my guest today is Mike Oard. He's a climatologist, retired now, but and meteorologist. Worked for the National Weather Service, lead forecaster in the Great Falls, Montana area. And we're talking about climate change because it's not just an ivory tower debate. It's something that really impacts our world to a large degree. It impacts the legislation that's passed, the laws regarding what kind of rigor a power plant has to go through, how it has to limit its carbon dioxide emissions, as well as cars and how much carbon dioxide they're allowed to put out, and all these sorts of things. And it has a huge financial impact on our nation, the amount of taxes we pay, all these sorts of things. So it's important to understand that our viewpoint, our biblical viewpoint, or lack thereof, is going to make an impact on how we live our lives. If we're living life off kilter from the truth, then we're going to be impacted negatively. If we're in line with Scripture, in whatever we're doing, whether that's relationships, whether that's our belief about climate change, whether that's our beliefs about whether we evolved or didn't evolve, all these things have an impact on the way we live our lives. And Jesus Christ said, "The truth. If you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Build your life upon my word." So when we get back, we're going to continue to talk to Mike Oard about his views on climate change and what we should be concerned about and what we shouldn't be concerned about. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jason Hall, president of Team Home Loans, a branch of Synergy One Lending. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Kevin Conover for the profound impact he's had on mine and my wife's spiritual life, as well as being an incredible teacher while our kids were his students. His knowledge and passion have taught us all how important it is to be defenders of our faith. It's our honor and privilege to support Kevin and his show. It is our sincere hope and prayer that you will continue to learn to be defenders of your faith through Kevin's radio show and through his Educate for Life teachings. Thank you, Kevin, from the Hall family and Team Home Loans.
What do leading local restaurants have in common? They depend on Express Fix Coffee for new and used coffee and espresso machines, repairs, and affordable monthly service. Dave Martin and his local team provide water filtration services too. Call San Diego's best espresso repair company, serving your home and business. Learn more online at expressfixcoffee.com. Call Express Fix Coffee at 619-867-3853. 619-867-3853. How can you live in San Diego and miss out on enjoying the water? FASTLANE Kayaking sells popular Hobie Cat kayaks that you pedal, not paddle. That means your hands are left free for fishing and fun. Just throw these on your roof rack. They're light and they're easy to use and maintain. Just rinse them off. Try one free on a demo ride. For 36 years, Ron and Debbie Lane have served San Diego with fun, family-friendly water sports of all kinds. Learn more. FastLaneSailing.com. 619-222-0766.
When you need tires or service, count on Conover Tires, Wheels, and Service in Oceanside for a full range of affordable options and all the brands you trust. See their great customer reviews and special offers online. Hours Tuesday through Friday, 7:30 to 5:30, and Saturdays, 7:30 to 5. Call Dan and his team at 760-439-1631. Conover Tires, Wheels, and Service, 2405 Oceanside Boulevard in Oceanside, 760-439-1631.
I will cast my cares on you. You're the
Thanks for listening today. This is Educate for Life. I'm your host, Kevin Conover. My website's educateforlife.org. You can pick up a recording of this show and previous shows if you visit my website. Also, we have a homeschool conference coming up August 4th and 5th. Pam TEBOW, Tim TEBOW's mom, is going to be speaking there. She's a homeschool pioneer. In 1982, she homeschooled all 5 of her kids. They all went to college with scholarships. And so she's going to give us insight into homeschooling and encouragement and inspiration. That's August 4th and 5th at the Creation Museum here in San Diego, California, Santee area. So my guest today is Mike Oard. Mike, when we left off the last segment, you said that you had participated in a lot of research. You looked at it and said, hey, how can I contribute to this sort of thing? What's some of the big research projects you've been involved in, or some of the research that you did that kind of shed some light on issues that maybe weren't so clear in the past?
Well, first of all, in regard to the Ice Age, that's what I started on back in the 1970s. I first of all read what other authors had said about it, and some had said, well, the key to the Ice Age would be a post-flood warm ocean. And others felt that the volcanic ash and aerosols from the flood and from post-flood volcanism would help cool the Earth. And so these camps, they never developed it any further than that, but I put them together and then developed an Ice Age model, starting with the Genesis flood right after the flood, caused by a warm ocean from pole to pole and top to bottom. And that causes much more evaporation. Now, you need water vapor.
Now, Mike, when you say top to bottom, what do you mean by that, top to bottom?
Top of the ocean to the bottom of the ocean.
Okay, so the warming started from the top and moved downward. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, it was warm from the flood.
Okay.
The mixing and all the hot water added from the fountains of the Great Deep and meteorite impacts and volcanism, you would end up with a warm ocean after the flood, and the mixing would end up being warm from pole to pole and top to bottom.
So when you say
evaporation.
When you say a warm ocean, how much increase in temperature are you talking about?
Oh, I started with there's a lot of ways to heat it. And so we can't have it too hot, or else a lot of the organisms we observe today would be dead.
Okay.
So I use an average of 30 degrees centigrade. Now, that's an average. There's some places it'd be cooler and some places warmer than that. And it had to cool down to the current average ocean temperature today is 4 degrees centigrade. So in that process of cooling the ocean, which is mostly by evaporation of water vapor, you put a lot more water vapor in the atmosphere, and it's mainly at mid and high latitudes because it's proportional to sea surface temperature. And the big differences would be at mid and high latitudes, where today we have cool sea surface temperatures, but after the flood we'd have warm, and so the difference would be dramatic. So the most evaporation would be at high and mid latitude oceans, close to the continental areas where the ice and snow accumulated, mostly in storms. But you have to cause a cooler continent too, because all that warm water would warm the air too, so that's a factor in all this. But volcanic ash and aerosols would reflect a lot of sunlight back to space, cooling mainly the mid and high latitude continental areas, and it'll keep it cool for the snow and ice to build up. And you can even time this ice age, which seems surprising to a lot of people, and it's based on the cooling time of the ocean. So giving some reasonable assumptions of the ice age, I estimated the cooling time of the oceans down to what we have today, and it's about 700 years to cool down. Once it starts cooling down below a threshold, the ice starts to melt, and it melts actually catastrophically, as we have lots of evidence for instance, in the Lake Missoula flood and other floods, ice age floods around the earth.
So there's rapid cooling is what you said. I'd
be fairly rapid, yes. I estimated the cooling time based on the amount of it's called a budget equation. You add up all the heating terms, subtract the cooling terms, and you get a change in temperature change in time. So if I estimated 20 degrees centigrade cooling for ice age maximum, and then the main cooling term is evaporation. It's a powerful cooling mechanism. And then I solve for temperature. Time. So that gave me a time of 500 years to build the ice and snow up to maximum, and then it took about 200 years to melt. So a 700-year ice age. So all the observations we see of the ice age, which are thousands of them on the surface of the earth, and need to be explained after the flood, are explained by this model, and the flood is the key to it.
Okay, so walk me through this here real quick. So Noah gets on the ark, right? He's on. It rains for 40 days and 40 nights, and then he's on for a period more. How much longer is he on the ark after that? He was on for a whole year, right?
About a whole year, yeah.
Yeah, and so the ark lands, he gets off, and the waters are slowly going down. What's happening right now at that point with the ice age? Take me through the next few centuries or so forth.
Well, day 150 is probably the peak of the flood, and everything was flooded. It was global. So after 150 days to day 371, the water goes down as the continents rise up out of the floodwaters, and as more and more land is exposed, you start getting a cooling right away. Now,
the majority of the cooling is in the poles, is that right?
Yes, and in the interior of mid-latitude continents also. It would cool pretty fast away from the warm water. So you'd have the cooling starting right away, and by the very end of the flood, where we essentially arrive at the current topography and geography we have today, you're actually pretty cool in certain spots, especially central and southeast Canada and places in Asia. And so you'd start your ice age immediately, but it'd be in favorable spots. It wouldn't be everywhere all at once because you still have that warm ocean water. So places like Western Washington, which is glaciated down to Olympia, Washington, you'd have that warm onshore flow for quite a while that would hold it up. But you'd have heavy precip in the mountains, much heavier than today, and it's heavy already today. So you'd have many mountains of the world would start glaciating right away, especially at the higher altitudes. And the ice age would slowly expand from Canada down to in the northern United States, and from the higher mountains to the lower mountains. And finally, for Washington State, you probably had a surge from southwest British Columbia down probably over a lake south of ice, probably surged down to Olympia to form the Puget Sound lobe of the Cordilleran ice sheet.
Okay, now, so when's the peak of the ice age? How far after the flood? Noah's off the ark. The waters have dissipated. They've gone off the continents. They're into the oceans. What's the peak of the ice age where you have the most snow and ice?
About 500 years.
500 years after the flood?
After the flood ended. And I calculated an average snow depth about 22,300 feet in the northern hemisphere and about 4,000 feet over Antarctica.
Okay.
And though the Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets continue to grow after when the other ice sheets are starting to melt, like the ones over North America and the one over Northwest Europe.
Okay, so 500 years, it's at its peak, and then it begins to, the areas begin to melt. Some areas you said are still growing. So what I'm interested in knowing about here is if you were to share this with a secularist or somebody who's like, we've got to stop the climate warming, what would you say to them as to how to respond to what we're seeing with the Paris Agreement and these sorts of things, based on what you've just shared with us? I'm curious to know your viewpoints on that. So when we get back, my guest is Mike Oard. He's very, very, he's a research scientist, done tons of looking at climate change, meteorology, atmospheric sciences, and really a well of information. So stay with us. We're going to be right back and continue to talk about this.
Before I bring my need, I will bring my heart.
Did you know that Denver Broncos quarterback Tim Tebow was homeschooled, along with all 4 of his siblings, by his mom, Pam Tebow? You're invited to hear Pam share how to successfully educate your children with a biblical worldview at San Diego County's only homeschool conference. Hear local experts as they give you the tools you'll need to help you teach your children. Don't miss the Educate for Life Homeschool Conference Friday and Saturday, August 4th and 5th, presented by the Creation and Earth History Museum in Santee, featuring worship with Michael Sanchez of The Voice, well-known local Bible teacher and radio host Tom Cantor, Pat Roy, creator of the Jonathan Park Creation Adventure audio drama series, and Educate for Life's Kevin Conover. Learn more, become an exhibitor, or register online now at registereducateforlife.com. That's registereducateforlife.com.
Hi, this is Jason Hall, president of Team Home Loans, a branch of Synergy One Lending. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Kevin Conover for the profound impact he's had on mine and my wife's spiritual life, as well as being an incredible teacher while our kids were his students. His knowledge and passion have taught us all how important it is to be defenders of our faith. It's our honor and privilege to support Kevin and his show. It is our sincere hope and prayer that you will continue to learn to be defenders of your faith through Kevin's radio show and through his Educate for Life teachings. Thank you, Kevin, from the Hall family and Team Home Loans.
This is Throughout All Ages Ministry with Joe and Stacy. We would like to equip you to share the gospel with confidence in a biblical and effective way.
We would like to teach you through the proclamation of the gospel.
Whether you're the skeptic, God who created you said that he has made himself known to you so that you are without excuse.
One-on-one evangelism.
How do you think you can get to heaven? I've never really thought about it, but I've always just thought of, doing good.
For more information, go throughoutallages.com, like us on Facebook, or visit us at YouTube at Throughout All Ages.
I'm giving it all away. No more hiding, no more stalling. I hear you call.
Thanks for tuning in to Educate for Life. I'm your host, Kevin Conover. My website's educateforlife.org. If you like this show, or if you just pick up in the middle of it and you didn't get to hear all of it, you can pick up a recording on my website. You can also check us out on Facebook. We're also on YouTube. So Mike is not in studio with me here today, but many of my guests are. And recently had on Dr. Jake Hebert also to talk about this issue. Very interesting stuff. Also just recently had on, not too long ago, Dr. James Torr, one of the top 50 scientists in the world, talking about why evolution is not true. Also recently had on Dr. Julie Doan, RN, on video game addictions and screen time addictions and how they impact a person's ability to have a relationship with the Lord and also to maintain the spiritual disciplines in order to help us walk with the Lord and grow in our relationship with God. So all kinds of interesting shows. Please check them out. Mike Oard is my guest today. Mike, when we left off on the last segment, you were saying that the peak of the Ice Age would have been about 500 years after the flood. So doing the math in my head, what would that be? That would be what BC?
3,800 years ago.
Okay, about 3,800 years ago. Moses comes on the scene 3,500 years ago. So about 400 years after the peak of the Ice Age, Moses walks onto the scene. Is that right?
Yes. What you read about in Genesis about the patriarchs and Moses probably occurred during the Ice Age.
Wow. And most people don't have any idea about that. So would they have been would the Middle East have been a lot colder at the time, or would that not have affected the Middle East so much?
Oh yeah, the climate would be cooler everywhere. It'd be a strange climate. You'd have cool summers and mild winters. So with little seasonal change at the beginning, and then the seasonal change would increase more, and summers would actually get warmer and winters colder.
Now that's not intuitive. Most people would think, well, you would have colder summers and colder winters. So why are you saying that you would have cooler summers and milder winters?
Because there's a lot of ways to heat the atmosphere, especially by storms. The warm ocean water would cause the atmosphere to be warm, especially over the oceans. Okay. And then you have all that latent heat from is evaporated from the ocean, then it condenses, and all that latent heat is added to the atmosphere. So those two heating processes, especially occurring with storms, would result in mild winters. And we have observations to support this, in that the animals and plants during the Ice Age showed evidence of mixing from cool climate animals and plants to warm climate, a mixing which indicates warm or mild winters, depending on where you're at, and cool summers.
Now, are you talking about this is in the strata of the Earth? You find this the fossil record?
No, the animals that lived during the Ice Age are found in Ice Age debris, like woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers. And for instance, you had hippos living in northwest Europe. There's 100 locations in just England, southern England, where you had hippo fossils mixed with reindeer and woolly mammoth fossils.
Oh wow!
By the way, this is the rule with animals and plants, that you have this mixing of animals from widely different climates together in Ice Age debris, and so this adds support to the mild winters and the cool summers. It's called in the geological literature disharmonious associations.
Wow, that's very interesting, huh? I've never heard that before. So that's very, very interesting. Okay, so we're getting to the issue of climate change here, and I've been told, Dr. Hebert told me that secularists will tell you there's been like 50 ice ages and these sorts of things, and that here we are, we're ruining the environment through our carbon emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. How does a worldview based on the science that you're sharing with us and the biblical explanation, how does that affect our response to things like the Paris Agreement and climate change and carbon emissions and so forth and so on?
Well, first of all, Genesis encourages us to take care of the garden. That's what God said to Adam and Eve. So that's a principle. We're supposed to be stewards of creation. But in order to be stewards of creation, and as Christians, we need to gather the facts first. Too many of us look on the internet and are persuaded by some article we need to get the facts first to make an informed decision. And unfortunately, on the internet and the scientific literature, we're not getting all the facts because of the strong push for what they call climate change now. It should be global warming. To get grants and to do research, you got to accept the global warming consensus view, supposedly, even though there are thousands of scientists that disagree with this consensus. And so to get grants, you got and to publish, you got to be in favor of global warming, that we need to act now, and that man's totally responsible for it. So we're getting a barrage of research reports. I read Science and Nature regularly, and it seems like almost every issue has some article on global warming. You know, I mean, they have billions of dollars of research funds. They're going to crank out a lot of research in favor of it. And so there's a one-sided view on this issue. In fact, there's a whole journal dedicated just to global warming, and it's called Nature Climate Change.
So where are they getting it wrong? Where are they? What are they missing? I mean, we all have access to the same, data, the same science. What are they missing?
I think they're downplaying natural processes. It is a fact that carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases like methane have been increasing. And we know that these do cause warming. The problem is we don't know how much warming.
Yeah, I looked up a stat, and it said that in the past 100 years, the temperature of the Earth has increased by less than a degree. Is that sound?
Yeah, it's close to 1 degree Fahrenheit.
Yes,
it's what we've added since they start the chart at 1880. So that's one fact. We've warmed approximately 1 degree Fahrenheit. But those temperature records, I know for a fact, are flawed because of different observations time, different instruments, relocation of the instrument shelter, sparse data. There's all kinds of problems. But, they've mostly got it out of there.
Okay.
I mean, they taken care of because they know about these. The urban heat island effect is a major. They mostly got that out, but they not totally. So we have to make a case, and some atmospheric scientists have made a case that possibly 1/3 of that 1 degree Fahrenheit is due to flaws in the observations. So, but I generally assume, 1 degree, that's close enough. But when you think about it, that is a very small number. That's all we've done, and we've increased carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases approximately 60 to 65% in carbon dioxide equivalency units.
Interesting.
That is a term which means we've increased carbon dioxide 30 to 35%. And if you add in other greenhouse gases like methane, that adds another 30% in carbon dioxide equivalency units. So we can keep it all one unit. So essentially we've increased greenhouse gases 60, 65% and only got 1 degree Fahrenheit. They run these computer models of climate.
Mike, I got to cut you off right there. We're coming up on a break here, but when we come back, we're going to continue to talk Mike Oard about climate change. He was a meteorologist, still is a meteorologist for the National Weather Service, lead forecaster, Great Falls, Montana, and we're getting a different perspective on climate change. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jason Hall, president of Team Home Loans, a branch of Synergy One Lending. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Kevin Conover for the profound impact he's had on mine and my wife's spiritual life, as well as being an incredible teacher while our kids were his students. His knowledge and passion have taught us all how important it is to be defenders of our faith. It's our honor and privilege to support Kevin and his show. It is our sincere hope and prayer that you will continue to learn to be defenders of your faith through Kevin's radio show and through his Educate for Life teachings. Thank you, Kevin, from the Hall family and Team Home Loans.
This is Throughout All Ages Ministry with Joe and Stacy. We would like to equip you to share the gospel with confidence in a biblical and effective way.
We would like to teach you through the proclamation of the gospel.
Whether you're the skeptic, God who created you said that he has made himself known to you so that you are without excuse.
One-on-one evangelism.
How do you think you can get to heaven? I've never really thought about it, but I've always just thought of, doing good.
For more information, go throughoutallages.com, like us on Facebook, or visit us at YouTube at Throughout All Ages.
When you need tires or service, count on Conover Tires, Wheels, and Service in Oceanside for a full range of affordable options and all the brands you trust. See their great customer reviews and special offers online. Hours Tuesday through Friday, 7:30 to 5:30, and Saturdays, 7:30 to 5. Call Dan and his team at 760-439-1631. Conover Tires, Wheels, and Service, 2405 Oceanside Boulevard in Oceanside, 760-439-1631.
Do you have one-button espresso machines in your home or business? They make delicious coffee drinks, but they're not maintenance-free. Express Fix Coffee is San Diego's source for coffee and espresso machine repair, sales, and service. Call Dave Martin at Express Fix Coffee for new and used espresso machines, repairs, parts, and accessories. They'll save you time and money. Call Express Fix Coffee at 619-867-3853. Learn more at expressfixcoffee.com.
There's got to be more than going back.
Welcome to Educate for Life. I'm your host, Kevin Conover. Appreciate you being here with us today. If you want to check out our other shows, you can go to our YouTube channel, Educate for Life Video. We also podcast the show. You can check that out. Just a reminder, August 4th and 5th, we do have a homeschool conference here in Santee, California at the Creation Museum. And we are going to have Pam TEBOW, who is going to be our keynote speaker, the mother of Tim TEBOW, as well as Michael Sanchez from The Voice, who is going to be leading worship, and a variety of other speakers to encourage you in your homeschool efforts. So my guest today is Mike Oard. Mike, to continue on where we left off talking about global warming, and you were saying that we've increased a maximum of about a degree, even though we've increased over 60% our greenhouse gas emissions. So are people saying that this is going to lead to a worldwide catastrophe if we don't stop this? I mean, they're spending millions and millions of dollars, if not billions, or trying to eliminate, using coal and power plants and all this stuff. Why are they, crying that this is such a big deal?
Well, it's because they run these computer simulations of the climate, and they double carbon dioxide in those simulations and leave all other variables the same and see what it does to the temperature. There's been many models run, and they vary with a temperature increase of anywhere from 3 degrees Fahrenheit to 11 degrees Fahrenheit, which the range should tell you something about. These models aren't all that accurate. But nature's run the experiment already. I mean, we've increased carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases to equivalency of 60 to 65%. And we've gotten about 1 degree Fahrenheit. And you can actually make a case it's less than that because of the problems in the observations.
Yeah.
So if you double the greenhouse gases, you'd get a temperature change of maybe 1.3, 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit. And yet all those models, they range from 3 degrees to 11 degrees Fahrenheit, are way too much warming. And politicians and some atmospheric scientists and a lot of and most other scientists that don't know much about computer models take these things verbatim. Say, whoa, we got a real huge problem. We got to do something, act now, etc. What they don't realize is that these climate simulations are flawed.
Yeah, and so they're expecting that if the greenhouse gas emissions go up, the Earth is going to warm, all the ice is going to melt, and then the temperature of the ocean is going to be raised. I'm sorry, the level of the ocean is going to be raised by something like a foot or something. Is that what they're thinking?
Oh, yeah, it depends on what happens to the West Antarctic ice sheet and the Greenland ice sheet, of course, for sea level rise. But they're working on all these things, and every time you read something, it's dire. Most of it's an exaggeration. They usually don't tell you the good things that can occur from global warming. Anyway, they take these models seriously, and I've worked with models all my life. I even did a numerical computer model of the atmosphere for my master's thesis, and they're flawed. They can't get clouds right. They can't get solar and infrared radiation right. They don't have the snow aging effect right. They don't have ocean processes right. So they have to estimate all these things in these models, so they're flawed. So I go with what nature's done, observations. So we double carbon dioxide, we're going to raise the temperature maybe 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit. But there's another factor in all this that I haven't mentioned yet, is that in this temperature rise, they neglect natural processes. For instance, there's a number of natural processes that cause climate to cycle from warm to cold, and effects on the sun cause warming or cooling. We know volcanic ash causes cooling, but that's only for a few years. They neglect these, and they also neglect, well, they don't entirely neglect, but they downplay past climate changes. Like we had the Little Ice Age from about 1400 to about 1880, in which all the glaciers of the world advanced. The Thames River going through London, England, froze over regularly, which is unheard of today. So the Little Ice Age was that was a time of minimum sunspots, and so there's a correlation with sunspots there. Before that, we had the medieval warm period about the year 1000, which the Vikings inhabited Greenland, and we had a lot of warmth in Europe and so forth. And you can trace these mainly to effects on the sun, and you can draw a correlation with temperature, carbon dioxide, and sun effects, sunspot activity.
Yeah, so
and
flare-ups on the sun.
Yeah, the temperatures in the 20th century correlate more with effects on the sun than they do with the increase in carbon dioxide. So I sum it all up for my research after 50 years is that man is causing global warming, but it's less than 50%. But there are natural processes that are in play that are causing more than 50%. So I divide it at 50%. So we are responsible for a little bit. So if we're responsible, say, for 50% of the global warming, it's only been 1 degree, then you're down to 0.5 degree Fahrenheit. And the way they talk at the Paris Agreement talks and all those that throw billions, if not trillions of dollars at it, and you might get maybe 1/10 or 2/10 of a degree Fahrenheit cooler temperature. So actually there's not a lot we can really do about it, but we can mitigate it, and we can do more unbiased research. That's what I always push for, more unbiased research in this issue, and get the facts for those that are confused.
So it's interesting too. So as far as are the glaciers actually retreating? So, you said the peak of the Ice Age was about 500 years after the flood, and it's been, has it been receding since then? Or, was there ice before the flood? Were there a lot of ice before the flood, or was that just purely as a result of the flood? And since then, the ice has been retreating, or are we just going through kind of ups and downs in temperature ever since the flood?
Well, after the ice retreated, when it was melting, winters have become even colder than today because you have those ice sheets that are melting, and they would cool the climate just from their existence. But once they melted, we essentially get to the present climate, arrive to the present climate, but with slight oscillations in climate due to natural processes, the sun and oceanic processes. But if you want to talk about before the flood, the evidence from the fossil record at high latitudes and other places, mid-latitudes, is that the climate was probably warmer than today before the flood, because we have all this warm climate vegetation from pole to pole that is in the rocks, and also warm climate animals at high latitude. So the evidence is by far that it was pretty warm before the flood, and therefore you probably, or very likely, would not have any glaciers at all. Maybe isolated and mountain peaks, but I doubt whether we had any. And then so the flood changed the climate. Talk about climate change. The king climate changer. And
okay, let's pick up here when we come back. We have one more segment to go. My guest today is Mike Oard. He is an expert in climate and specifically how the flood affected the climate. And he is a Bible-believing Christian who loves the Lord. And so when we get back, we'll continue to look at this issue of climate change in light of a biblical perspective. We'll be right back.
the Denver Broncos quarterback Tim Tebow was homeschooled, along with all 4 of his siblings, by his mom, Pam Tebow? You're invited to hear Pam share how to successfully educate your children with a biblical worldview at San Diego County's only homeschool conference. Hear local experts as they give you the tools you'll need to help you teach your children. Don't miss the Educate for Life Homeschool Conference Friday and Saturday, August 4th and 5th, presented by the Creation and Earth History Museum in Santee, featuring worship with Michael Sanchez of The Voice, well-known local Bible teacher and radio host Tom Cantor, Pat Roy, creator of the Jonathan Park Creation Adventure audio drama series, and Educate for Life's Kevin Conover. Learn more, become an exhibitor, or register online now at registereducateforlife.com. That's registereducateforlife.com.
For 36 years, FASTLANE Kayaking has helped people like you experience everything that's great about San Diego. FASTLANE makes fishing and water sports fun and easy. Hobie Cat kayaks feature a popular pedal system, not paddles, keeping your hands free as you fish. You no longer need to tow and gas up a boat to experience great San Diego fishing. Call or come in for your no-charge demo ride. 619-222-0766. FastlaneSailing.com. At Dana Landing Marina across from SeaWorld. 619-222-0766.
Hi, this is Jason Hall, president of Team Home Loans, a branch of Synergy One Lending. I just want to take this opportunity to thank Kevin Conover for the profound impact he's had on mine and my wife's spiritual life, as well as being an incredible teacher while our kids were his students. His knowledge and passion have taught us all how important it is to be defenders of our faith. It's our honor and privilege to support Kevin and his show. It is our sincere hope and prayer that you will continue to learn to be defenders of your faith through Kevin's radio show and through his Educate for Life teachings. Thank you, Kevin, from the Hall family and Team Home Loans.
I will cast my cares on you. You're the
Welcome to Educate for Life. I'm your host, Kevin Conover. My website's educateforlife.org. If you want to sign up for the classes that I have available for homeschool curriculum, it's all online. You can go to join.educateforlife.org, join.educateforlife.org, and you'll be able to sign up for the classes and get it for a Bible credit. It's a fantastic way to equip your young person and yourself in the Word of God and to be able to defend your faith. It's a complete apologetics curriculum. My guest today is Mike Oard. And Mike, a lot of this stuff you're saying is amazing, very interesting stuff. Is there any books or resources that you have that they could go check out? Do you have a website or anything like that?
Yes, I have a website. It's michael.ords, O-A-R-D-S, .net. And
Michael.ord, O-A-R-D dot what?
Oh, Ords, O-A-R-D-S .net.
.net, great. Okay, michael.ords.net. And there they can look into all this information you're sharing with us.
Well, some of it they can. The best book to get is my book, Frozen in Time, Woolly Mammoths, the Ice Age, and the Biblical Key to Their Secrets from Master Books. Okay,
Frozen in Time. That's fantastic. That is pretty amazing. So you were saying that before the flood, there was a more tropical like environment?
Well, there was probably seasons, and there was probably north-south temperature differences, but they were probably very mild. And with mild temperature differences, you don't have enough power to generate storms, and so it was probably mild, especially from the plant material. And the fact that if you look at the coal, which is a burial of pre-flood vegetation, we have 10 times the amount of carbon in the coal, approximately, than we have in the biosphere today on land. So it was a lush, rich environment. And these plants and trees, being 10 times today, would be giving off water vapor called transpiration. And so our water vapor would be much higher before the flood. And that's the chief greenhouse gas. It causes 85 to 90% of the greenhouse effect is water vapor, and more water vapor. And so it all goes together. It was a warm climate, lush vegetation,
So we got to tell all the people that are involved in the climate change stuff that they've got to lessen the amount of water vapor in the air is what we got to do.
Yes, water vapor. In fact, it's difficult to get those right in the models. The water vapor. There's the water vapor effect.
So we just got to stop evaporation from the oceans, and we should be good to go.
Yeah, but there'd be other ramifications.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's crazy, but that's very interesting. What else is important that people don't generally understand about climate and these sorts of things as it pertains to the flood and how it impacted our climate and so forth?
Well, that's a tough question. Could you narrow it down?
Yeah, there's a lot there to talk about. So when you're doing your research and you look at these things and people are talking about the flood, they're talking about how it impacted things. They're talking about the melting of the glaciers and these sorts of things. When we look at what's happening with our temperatures today and so forth and so on, how is the biblical worldview different than a secular worldview? I mean, Dr. Hebert told me that secularists believe there were 50 ice ages, whereas we're looking at it and we're saying there's only one. What kind of science actually supports the biblical worldview over the secular worldview?
If you're referring just to the Ice Age, the fact that we can account for the disharmonious associations, we can also account for the millions of woolly mammoths that live in Siberia and Alaska and the Yukon Territory in lowlands that weren't glaciated. We can account for them because the climate in those areas was much different than today. It was mild winters with lack of permafrost, and it'd be a huge grassland, a great environment for animals that can tolerate some cold.
Yeah. What about the secularist who says, yeah, but we know from the ice cores, it's very clear to us that there has been multiple ice ages. We can see it in the ice cores. We can see these long ages in the ice cores.
Oh, okay. That's another study. I have a whole book on that from the Institute of Creation Research called The Frozen Record. To boil it down into a few minutes, first of all, in the Greenland ice sheet, you see evidence of only one ice age, but in there, the snow accumulation is high enough that you can show seasonal cycles at the top. But because of the compression of the ice, the seasonal cycles become blurred and difficult to read, and so when they claim they can see 100,000 years of seasons down near towards the bottom, from the top to the bottom in an ice core, they're really picking up other factors that cause these oscillations like storms. And even within storms, you have oscillations. So the idea you got 100,000 layers up there in Greenland is not true. Where they pick up multiple ice ages is in the Antarctic ice sheet. But they have evidence for about 7 of them there. So there are 50. And that is based mainly on assumptions. They can't do annual layers in Antarctica because it's too dry. I only get about 1 or 2 inches of precip at the top of it a year, and that's not good enough, and blows around, not good enough to pick up the annual layers. So they wing it by assuming that those wiggles in the variables down an ice core in Antarctica are correlated with cores in the deep sea. And they've already dated those cores according to the Milankovitch or astronomical theory of the Ice Age that they assume, which has periods of 100,000 years. So they say each Ice Age is 100,000 years back to 1 million years and 40,000 before that. Those are 2 Milankovitch cycles, all based on assumption and circular reasoning to do it. And that's where they get the multiple Ice Ages from the Antarctic ice sheet.
Wow. Well, there is a lot to learn here as far as this is concerned. My guest today is Mike Oard. Mike, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And his website is michael.ords.net. That's michael.ords, OARDS.net. You can check out his website. He's got all kinds of information there. Also, you can pick up his book, The Frozen Record. What was the other book you mentioned, Mike? The one that's you said most recent.
The one from Institute of Creation Research on the Antarctic, Greenland ice sheets and ice cores that is still in print, and the other is Frozen in Time, which is about woolly mammoths in the Ice Age.
Okay, so you got Frozen in Time and the Frozen Record.
Right.
Okay, great. And okay, and are you ongoing and doing research, or are you kind of just retired now?
Oh, I've been retired quite a while, but only from the National Weather Service. Otherwise, I'm a full-time creation researcher.
That's fantastic. And do you have your research listed on your website?
No, I don't.
Can people access that research at all?
Yes, I published a lot in the Journal of Creation and the Creation Research Society Quarterly, and those are the in-depth journals that we publish, or two of them, I should say, that we publish, and in Creation Magazine. So I got a lot of articles in there that people can access on the Ice Age and the Flood, and even on global warming.
Well, thank you so much for all that you do. It's an invaluable resource and absolutely making a difference. So thank you very much for that, Michael. And if you like today's show, please check it out. Share it with a friend. You can share it on YouTube or podcast. We're going to be back next week with another special guest. So we'll see you next Saturday. Hope you have a fantastic Saturday. Stay cool if you're here in San Diego. It's pretty hot, over 100 degrees right now. But we will see you next week. God bless you. Build your life upon Jesus Christ and His Word.
Did you miss part of today's program? Don't worry, we're committed to helping you get the info you need. Okay, that was dumb, but for real, visit educateforlife.com for podcast and video recordings of the show and to sign up for the School of Unshakable Faith. Leave us your comments, compliments, questions, or concerns at 800-243-90.